should go on.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October the 2nd Design Review Board meeting. First up is roll call.
Board Member Kim? Here. Board Member Holscher? Here. Board Member Ordorisio?
Here.
Odorcio, sorry. And Chair Chong.
Here. And now we move to oral communications for anybody wishing to address the Design Review Board for any items that are not on this evening's agenda. So if you have anything that you'd like to address that's not on this evening's agenda, please come forward. And if you're on the Zoom call, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen to let us know, and we'll let you into the room. Again, items not on this evening's agenda.
There's no one on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to staff briefing.
Thank you, Chair Chong. The only item I wanted to mention tonight is we do have an appeal for a couple variances at 110 Los Lomas. It was approved by the Design Review Board a few weeks back, and that has been appealed. And excuse me, we'll be going to the Town Council on the 15th of October in a couple weeks. And just for the board's information, the appeal is largely based on concerns with coyote access and security. And certainly coyotes, is a concern, but just wanted to kind of let you know that was kind of the basis of the appeal. So the materials will be available on the website next Thursday afternoon.
All right,
Yep.
excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the adoption of the minutes from the September 18th Design Review Board meeting. Is there a motion for those minutes?
I move to adopt the minutes.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, and all those, and I also wasn't here, but you can actually vote to adopt if you want to, which would give us a, yep. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. With that, we adopt the September 18th Design Review Board meeting minutes and move to our public hearings. We have 3 items on this evening's agenda. The first one, PH1, is 4301 Paradise Drive. What we'll be doing is the format for this evening's meeting is the applicant will have up to 20 minutes to come and present. We might have some questions. We'll then also open it up to the public if there's anybody from the public that would like to comment, and then the applicant will have 5 minutes after that also to address any of the concerns that might have been raised. With that, you can come forward.
Okay, if I just stand up.
We're recording, so you can stand up there as long as you take the microphone with you. Yep.
And then it also is a little hard to see in the dark, but
Maybe I'll just sit here then. Thank you. That's good. Okay, you can hear me okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm the architect with PPK Architects, helping the fire district with their new Station 10. So with that, I know a lot of you guys are familiar with the old station, so we've made some minor modifications since the PPK team was brought on board to the project. So I'll kind of talk about some of those changes that we've made since the original kind of project, kind of just to highlight those. So kind of the first one is they're all pretty minor, but the main entry, we changed the roof line to be a gable roof line just to kind of accentuate that main entry so users know where they're headed. We did change some materials in efforts to save costs. So we switched from stone veneer to board and batten kind of wainscot on the front of the building there. We did change the roofing from metal panel to be composite shingle. And we expanded the mezzanine about 258 square feet and added an exterior walkway that brings you, from the parking lot to the mezzanine level. So that's on the exterior side. And in addition, we added 8 skylights to bring some additional natural light and ventilation into the building. And we made some modifications to the training tower in the back. There was a training tower in the beginning, but we had kind of updated the materiality and how that flows. So kind of the background on the project, this is 4301 Paradise Drive. So the existing Fire Station 10 was already demolished and the site is cleared and we're getting ready for construction very soon. This is the site plan. So you can see in the dark gray is the new proposed layout footprint of the fire station, a little bit larger than the removed fire station in the back. I don't know if I can point with this. Can I point with this? Okay, sorry. So this area back here is the training tower, some new parking stalls, and an area for solar panels as well. So this is the proposed layout of the new training tower. So you can see the height is about 17 feet tall. The bottom floor is CMU concrete, and there will be a generator in this space and some trash bins as well for the fire district. And then the top level will be a recycled Connex box with some openings that they can practice putting the ladder up to and hosing it down, all that. And then on top will be a vent prop. Due to the removal of the existing fire station, a lot of the landscaping had to be removed as well. So we will be putting in fresh landscape plants and trees as well as part of the project. On your right is the floor plan of the fire station. Kind of all your main features. There's an entry point here, office, day room, kitchen. The dorms for the fire staff will be back here, gym. At bay is this kind of larger space. And then on the second floor is that expanded mezzanine. So you can see that exterior stair here that goes down to the parking lot as well. So our new total square footage is 5,210 square feet. This exhibit shows the roof plan, so it shows those 8 skylights. There's 4 over the app bay, 2 over the mezzanine, 2 over the dorm hallway, because there's not really any light there, 1 over the kitchen island, and then 1 in the office. Here you can kind of see the height of the spaces, and this is that mezzanine up there that has been expanded. Elevations, and we'll kind of walk through there, but to point out the main changes, here's that gable roof that has been revised, the board and bat in here, here's that exterior stair, and you can see some of those skylights as well. So here's then a enlarged view of the front of the fire station. Here's the back of the fire station with the training tower on the side here. You can see those CMU walls and the Connex box on top. A view from the side. And this is the view along Paradise Drive. And that's all. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a number. With regards to the species of the landscaping, are they all natural or native to the area, or are they not?
That's a good question. Thank you. I'm not positive the answer to that. We can, if that's something that is desired, we can definitely confirm that they are all native species. Typically, that is what we try to do to make sure everything's low maintenance and native, but I'd have to double check.
And then the CMU, is that painted, or is it just gonna be left blank?
For now, it'll probably be just a exposed CMU. It'll have to be a precision face, so it's kind of smoother on the outside, so it doesn't get banged up as much.
And then with regard to any sustainability features, is it going for any sort of sustainability certification because it is a public structure?
We are not currently going for any sustainability other than our typical practices that we like to include for sustainable ideals.
Have you done any calculations on the operational energy consumption, any of that stuff?
Yes, our engineers make sure we do all that. We make sure we're totally compliant with Title 24. All of our Cal Green requirements are met. All of those calculations are per California code.
Sure, but are you guys going above and beyond or just meeting the threshold? Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're just meeting the threshold.
Okay. And then the front elevation, it's dramatically changed a lot. Could you explain sort of what the idea is and the wainscoting and the type of wood that you're sort of going for and the treatment of that wood and just trying to understand that front
Definitely.
elevation because it's a vastly different elevation than we had seen and it's also vastly different from what was there previously.
Yes, thank you for that question. I know kind of the imagery is definitely different too, but all the kind of the main components we tried to keep the same. So I'll highlight kind of the few main ones and to give you the kind of backstory on that. A lot of it is due to we went through a value
Sure.
engineering process to see what we can save money on. So one thing was materials. So that stone veneer, I know you're used to seeing kind of here, and then the bottom wainscot. So we updated that to board and batten, which is a fiber cement material. So it is way more durable than wood. It's definitely waterproof. So that's kind of why we went with that material versus the stone veneer as well. And I believe you're referring to the dramatic change is kind of this roof line right here.
Well, no, I'm looking at the siding material and the siding there and that partie is like going around like three sides and then now you're changing the materiality of the front.
Yes. So this is kind of like it's a tongue and groove wood and it has kind of warmth, and that's why it was included just to add a little bit of architectural intrigue as well as kind of pronouncing that main entry versus kind of blending it in with the other materials. So that's this and this as well. I know there was a patio before and it kind of had that same wood material. So that was just a decision that our team made to kind of add some warmth to the building and that natural wood tone. And this material.
Can probably answer some of your questions.
You just have to come up if, yeah. And if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Chair.
Can I just stand? Perfect. My name is Daniel Elkington. I'm a battalion chief with Tiburon Fire. And the reason for us to change to these sightings was to give the community some ideas of what they could do for their house. So the wood siding actually is a new product that was just went through a process with CAL FIRE. And now they've approved it to be installed in all the WUI areas. So there's a lot of Tiburon that's still in the WUI. So this was an idea to also throw out to the public. So when they're driving by, they can stop and see, oh, well, I kind of like that. Let me check out what that product is on the fire station and see if it's something I could do on my house. So that's why we incorporated different wood siding with concrete siding.
So it's cementitious it's like a cementitious siding on the majority of it. It's a horizontal sort of cementitious siding. And then once you get to the front, it's also it's not a mass timber product. It's just some kind of veneer product it's a tongue and groove and that's a material change. And then we have the board and batten, which is another material change. So I'm just trying to understand like what's going on there, but that's really helpful.
Yeah, we were just trying to give people, like you're saying, it gives people a lot of ideas of what they could do with their house.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's really helpful. Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Daniel, I was just curious on your point there. Do you ever do tours with the public of the building? Anything, any events like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have there's Fire Prevention Week is actually coming and we have all the schools and a lot of the parents come along to the fire stations and come check it out and we give them a tour of the APE. And then obviously if there's public walking by, we always invite them in.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
was curious about that.
I mean, this site's hard because of the location off of Trestle Glen and Paradise. There's not a lot of parking to host large events, but when the fire station's open, we're more than happy to have people come by and look at the vegetation or the siding or get ideas. That was the hope with building this fire station.
Is there any additional questions for the applicant before we open it to the
Uh,
public?
Just real quick, would you clarify, did you have a external stairway on the original plans? And if,
No, we did not originally. There was a ceiling panel that kind of pulled down with steps so you can access that mezzanine, and it was much smaller. So when we expanded that mezzanine to be larger, we added that exterior stair.
is that for safety reasons or what, anything? in
Easy-
particular?
answer that
yeah.
question too. Yes, it was before there was like a pull down attic ladder. And we were going to be storing a lot of our medical gear in that mezzanine level. It comes in large boxes. And we have that issue at our current station of trying to bring down large objects and provide for safety. So the best idea was to put an external staircase to get away from that, something pulling down or falling down when people are bringing supplies or equipment down from that level.
Any additional questions before we open it to the public? All right. So with that, if there's anybody here to speak on this project, if you could please come forward. All right. And if we could also go to the Zoom call, if you're on the Zoom call and you wish to speak on this project, please use the raise hand feature.
There's no one on Zoom.
All right. You technically have 5 additional minutes if you want to use them, but you don't have to.
I mean, we're more than happy to explain anything else with the project.
All right. Any other final questions before we close the public portion of the hearing? All right, seeing none. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board. Would anybody like to lead us off?
Yeah, so I sit on the CAL FIRE Wood Products Innovation Board, and what we're trying to do is promote mass timber products and other sort of products that probably are conceived as or perceived as sort of not fire safe, and sort of promote that and to reduce the biomass. And I feel like there's an opportunity here to probably ask for some grants from CAL FIRE. That front elevation actually bothered me a lot. I think it's just way too busy. There's too many parts to it. And I'm wondering if there's a way to like get rid of the preference would be for me just to get rid of that base wainscoting and just bring down that wood and just emphasize that wood corner. I think that would be so much more lovelier because that's a very prominent corner in my neighborhood and I see that all the time. And what was there previously was blended really well in with like the neighborhood characteristics, character of the entire area. Like it felt like another home in a way, even though it was a firehouse. And it just reads very commercial to me now. And I'm wondering if there's a way, if that wainscoting was stripped off, there's just too many elements of gray. Like maybe there's just that one gray piece. What if that would, I mean, I understand there's a durability issue, like things are gonna get banged up and stuff, but like, I think it's just way too busy. Like you're having like a very residential looking sort of siding going all the way around. Then all of a sudden it gets broken up by these gray pillars in the front with these beautiful wood sort of structural elements, which I really like for the roof. I just feel like there's an opportunity lost here. Like emphasize the wood more, actually. I know it sounds like weird, but if it is a CAL FIRE product that's been tested and does conform to whatever things are, let's emphasize that. Why cover it up with wainscoting? So I don't know. It just looks really busy, and I think the simpler it is, the better. So, but other than that, I think the stair is fine. I mean, there's a need for it. So
Skylights and
skylights. I mean, there wasn't any. I would only see a protest from the neighbor behind it. There's that one house that looks directly over the firehouse, and if they didn't say anything, I guess it's okay. Just want to make sure that there's no lighting. I didn't see it. Sorry, I don't remember seeing the section through the skylighting, but I presume that they're not going to be, lit up. There's no lighting underneath it. So, and it's a planning code. I mean, it's a building code issue, right? So they wouldn't have been able to do that. So.
Right, thanks. Maybe work this way, Jim?
Yeah, I guess I would like to hear more about, I think that's an interesting point you brought up about having this blend with the neighborhood more than it currently does, just the aesthetics of the front of it. And, I think that's a very good point. I guess I'd like to see us perhaps take that uh, to another level, push that a little harder to make some of the changes you've brought up.
Maybe? Actually,
Sorry, I have no issues with the skylights or the stair or adding the square footage or honestly the siding. Multiple times we have done homes with a wainscoting with a wood wainscot. Usually it's board and batten above the wainscot and it's horizontal below. But the other one, I was looking at the previously approved elevations and it's got stone and wood and red, and this has wood and painted wood and red, and it doesn't bother me, but I wasn't here before, so I don't have that precedent to go with. But I think that it's a fine and pleasant and good design. I love the wood part and I understand the painted part, so I don't have a problem.
and then I'm probably more where Phoebe is, that again, I wasn't here for the original one. I did pull up the kind of the original plans, and there's definitely a change. But I think that if I was seeing this for the first time, like without any perspective on the other one, it wouldn't bother me. I think often we see stuff come through the opposite way with like too much of the same material, and we ask the applicant to go back and kind of break things up a little bit. And this it definitely is more broken up, but it's not broken up in a way that really that that I think that bothers me, maybe the way it does Suzanne. Um, so kind of sounds like we're a little bit split on this one. I don't know, is it something where
No, I guess I'd just like to hear, if you have some specific recommendations, I'd at least, like to hear them. I also have very little problems with any of this, but I appreciate your perspective from living in the neighborhood and seeing more specifically what it is that you would want a change of. I'd at least want to hear that.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that I wanted to make sure the landscaping is that they do pick native species. I think it makes a bold statement from a fire department to be using native species, or it makes a bold statement if you don't use
You
native
don't,
species.
yeah. I was gonna say, I'm assuming these
Fire
are
resistant, probably fire
non-pyrophytic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know.
assuming there, yeah.
I just see a lot of different direction changes and it just feels really busy. So like you see horizontal members, you see vertical, you see, they're all kind of clashing different colors. I don't know. I just feel like there could be a round of edits. And this is the most important corner for, I think, cyclists around the Bay Area, because they have a little mailbox there for like fixing your bikes. And I just feel like there's something about this particular fire. I remember this fire station before I moved here. So I think that was like I'm gonna date myself, in the early 2000s. And I thought this was real. It's like a sort of blue gray slate.
Mm.
What do you call it? Siding with a red, but not super red, but it was like sort of like a darker red sort of lettering. And I was like, that's so subtle. It's so cute. And it just fits right into the neighborhood. It feels so much more commercial. Maybe it's a shield. I don't know.
Unfortunately, we closed the public portion. Yeah, sorry. But yeah. I mean, I guess while I see your point, I also think that like any version that's going to come back is probably going to use similar material, like just bringing the wood down or something like that. I think that it's not the difference between a cyclist coming around that corner and saying, "Oh, that looks like a house instead of a fire department," or something changes it fundamentally from a look of it. And there may be a tweak here or there, but I don't think it changes when you come around that corner that like, oh, because of that small tweak or whatever, it's fundamentally like feels different to you.
Yeah, and for me, it's like a matter of preference, which I don't think is my place on the design review. I mean, I would prefer not to see the board and batten column bases under the big timber. I'd rather see that wood so that it's
Yes,
a little
absolutely.
calmer, a little bit less, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I don't think that, I mean, that's my preference and that you know.
But we are the design review board and we
I
do
know,
look
but
at
that-
colors and we do look at sort of the aesthetics
Yeah.
of it. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to make a comment because this isn't like someone's home. This is all of our home. This is our community's home. And
Yeah.
so I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah, it would have been nice if like the gray elements were for the top. It's for the eaves. It's going around and that little detail. I understand that. And I felt like the base, if we brought down everything was wood, that would have been so beautiful. Like,
You know, I guess, I mean, so I think the thing is that like when people bring their own homes through, it's like people were a little bit hesitant to like, because that's what they're presenting us that they want. I would argue that the fire department collectively has looked at this, like this is their home away from home, so to speak.
Right.
And I think they've looked at this collectively and presented something that they would be very happy going into every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I have stopped many times and used the water fountain that is now torn down on the side of,
Yeah.
on the left side of the fire department as I run around Paradise. And so I hope the water fountain goes back in. But I would be like it would be enjoyable to walk up to the fire station that looks like this. I mean, so I guess for me, I'm definitely much more on the supportive side. I agree with the plants, make sure that they're native and fire resistant. But as far as the design, I think that we're presenting with a design that the fire department collectively has looked at a bit and presented us with something that they want. So I'm kind of hesitant to
Yeah.
try to kind of force a tweak on them.
Yeah. I am too.
So are you kind of in a similar?
Yeah, I think I would support that then. I wanted to hear if there were some specific examples that could be added with still getting this to pass. That's one thing, but no, I wouldn't hold it up for what I've heard tonight.
if they could
So-
consider those bottom elements to be natural wood, that I don't know why it bugs me, but it really, really bothers me that it feels like, plaid where things are just kind of mishmashed on there and there's no cohesion of this design. So that's my big beef. But
We'll consider it.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll consider it. And
That would,
yeah,
you know.
I think that's just for clarification, that's something that staff could approve if the fire department did want to bring back a cladding that
They
was
just
slightly.
simplify
I mean, we were
Yeah.
really seeing this because of the skylights in the floor area tonight, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. So with that, maybe we're looking like a motion, maybe this side of the table.
Here
I
I
don't know which.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the additional square footage and skylights and modifications of the design to the fire.
Say, I think we'd be, do
station.
we have a, yeah, so I think we'd be looking for a motion to adopt the draft resolution.
Adopt the draft resolution.
And so for clarification on the plan, just, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no,
So
thank
on-
you.
Clarification on the plants, do they already listed as native and fire resistant or what, fire resistance is a requirement, right?
Yeah.
And then from a
Yeah.
native standpoint, if we wanted to put an additional condition of approval,
I think
And
just to be safe, I think it's better to put that as a condition. I don't see it on all of the species, so I think it would be helpful just that if that's your motion to include that.
yeah, so I think it would be a motion to adopt the draft resolution with the additional condition of approval in the application that the plants are native.
Okay, I make, am I gonna remember that? Oh, God. I make a motion to approve the draft resolution with the additional condition that the plants be native species.
And that is categorized from CEQA.
And that it is categorically exempt from CEQA.
Okay. And do we,
Thank
do we have a
you.
second?
Me, please.
Second.
Okay, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
nay,
None? All right, and with that,
it's like a
the,
little nay. Just need the bottom part.
and with that, we adopt the draft resolution and good luck with your project. All right. And with that, we'll move on to PH2, 30 Juneau Road, if the applicant could come forward and present. Again, you have up to 20 minutes to present. And then we'll open it to the public.
Great. Thank you for having me, Chair Chong and members of the Design Review Board. My name is RJ Suko. I'm a civil engineer. I'm also the property owner and the project architect. So 30 Juneau Road, this is a project that actually has already gone through a round of design review and building permit and is in construction. What we're here tonight is to review a couple elements that I'd like to amend for reasons I'll explain. But it was originally done as a 500 square foot addition and then was also submitted with an ADU earlier this year. So tonight, the two issues that I'll be going into detail on are a variance request for the construction of an 8-foot tall rear yard fence in lieu of a 6-foot. And secondly, a reduced front yard parking setback of 0 feet instead of 3 feet. And apologies if it's still a little small. I tried to make it as big as I could. So on the right-hand side, it's a site plan of the property. You'll see a green highlighted cross-section at the bottom. That is representative of the actual profile that you're seeing on the left. So this is here to show a person of average height standing just outside of their home, looking up at Trestle Glen Boulevard, which is a very busy street here in Tiburon. It's an arterial road. And you can see that there's, without this added 2 feet of fence, there's a clear, unimpeded, basically flow of sound that can go to that person's ear. And this is based on a official survey. And so the road is, true at that height. Little faded, but behind that, you'll see what is a fire truck. So taller vehicle, traveling along that same road. As we know, fire station is right around the corner. And also this street is not uncommon for, diesel, large dump trucks and such during the day as well. Also, as part of this fence variance is, the proposal to plant 4 California pepper trees. Those are drought tolerant trees. They're evergreen and really just to add to the kind of privacy screening. But yeah, so that's the basis here for kind of really just trying to create more privacy and also reduce sound, which has some health and comfort impacts. The second issue is the driveway. So on the bottom of the site plan on the right, it's Trestle Glen. And then so you can envision that, cars could be turning from Trestle Glen on, making a quick turn onto Juneau Road. And that's also in the red box where there's an existing 2-car parking spot. Something to note is that the existing 2 cars parking spot also is not meeting standard. It's not able to achieve the 3-foot required setback. It's, a foot or less. And so the idea is to, basically remove that parking, return it to landscaping and turf, and then relocate it onto the north side of the property, which is now where the front door is. And that's really the condition that every other home on that street has. But there's also a lot of safety benefits that I'm going to get into that really I think are very important to avoid an accident at this location. So this is a so as engineers, this is one of the prevailing standards that we refer to in this situation. It's called the minimum stopping distance. So basically, it's based on the speed of the driver, how many feet would they need to identify an object, a car, a bicycle, a kid, etc. And then also have the time to actually process that information and hit the brake pedal. And so as you can see, as the speed increases, you need more distance, pretty straightforward. Here's a quick diagram showing kind of a conceptual analysis of what this looks like. So I've got 4 red boxes that represent vehicles making various turns onto the direction of that existing driveway. And the one that's bold is the one that I would say is the most critical. So you can imagine a vehicle coming down Trestle Glen. It's a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, but as we know, speed limits often could be going faster. There's no stop sign, and so someone could just kind of whip around the corner. And here you could have a vehicle backing out, and this definitely does not meet that safety standard and is well short. The other movements are not as concerning, as you can see. There's a little more time to, as you're coming from the north side of Juneau down to Trestle Glen, you're traveling on a road that's residential and, definitely not as fast. So much more time to identify what's going on and make a stop and avoid a collision. But certainly the one on the bottom is concerning. And secondly, excuse me. And this is that same exercise, except for looking at the new proposed driveway location. So that's up on the north in the yellow box. And so as you can see, on the east-west part of Juneau Road, plenty of sight distance before you would actually be met with the car in the roadway. And then also coming off of Trestle Glen, even if you did whip around, you're now entering a residential street with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. There's a slow legend on the ground. You're coming to an intersection. You've got better sight lines as you make the turn. So this is a much more reasonable driveway location. And I think it's reasonably meets the standard that the Caltrans Highway Design Manual is recommending. So with that, I'll get into kind of the combined findings for these 2 items. A couple of things I want to reference are, this is the general plan 2040 for the town of Tiburon. And I touched on it earlier, but believe it or not, this is the only arterial road in the jurisdiction of Tiburon. Now, obviously, we have Tiburon Boulevard, but that's jurisdiction of Caltrans. But even so, those are the only 2. All the other streets are collectors and residential roads, which are defined as having less volumes, less speed, less noise, etc. It's also from the general plan identifying that, and it's a little hard to see, but it's basically saying that Trestle Glen is 60 decibels on basically a daily basis. And so that's, that and Tiburon Roller are the only 2 in town that have that level of sound. And this is also in that same section of the general plan. It goes into what is acceptable for Tiburon. And what you can't quite see without a magnifying glass, unfortunately, unless you have it on front of your screen, is it's basically saying that 60 decibels would be conditionally acceptable, kind of like construction is. So temporarily someone constructs next to you, but it's not what is considered acceptable every day. And so this is the problem, or at least the hardship that people that don't have larger walls or significant tree buffering are dealing with on as they back up to Trestle Glen in this neighborhood. Just going into the findings. So yeah, is it a special special circumstance applicable to this property? And for some of the reasons I've already explained, it does not. The driveway is all the driveways on that part of Juneau are all facing north already. This is actually the one that is the outlier. And yeah, for the same reasons, this is a unique stretch of roadway with respect to sound. As we saw, there's only 2 arterial roads that are in Tiburon as we commonly think of it. This is granting special privileges. Kind of similar thoughts. There've been some other variances given to nearby residences, so there is a precedence for this with respect to the fence, and it's not some rule that's going to set the precedence for all of town, because really it's Tiburon Boulevard and Trestle Glen that are really the kind of most impacted by street noise. Yeah, is there a practical difficulty, unnecessary physical hardship? And I would say absolutely. And it's really just kind of the safety side. The fear of and probability of getting in a collision, every time that you back up your car, is not something that we want our public to have to deal with. And the other thing to note is, and it's if you have the exhibit in front of you, is the property line is actually set back from the curb by 8 feet 10 inches, I believe, in a lot of cases. So it's already providing, I think, what the original code was intended to do, was kind of have a buffer for people to walk behind the curb or other things. So there's more than enough real estate there, and doesn't preclude the town in the future from putting in a sidewalk, or they could even fit a multi-use path in there if they wanted to. And really with both of these, there's really no adverse impact by allowing the variances to any of the neighbors. And for the neighbors with the driveway, they're actually in the same situation. So if and some of them have converted their garage to living space, and so their driveways are their parking spots, and those also, at least the ones in the immediate vicinity, and probably all of them, don't have the 3-foot buffer as well. And yeah, and as mentioned, there's several fence variances in the neighborhood. From a material standpoint, on the interior of the fence, would just be proposing a horizontal cedar plank, and then on the outside, very similar, but just a redwood vertical plank. With a kind of medium cedar stain. As you can see, that's the pepper tree in the middle down there, and then just added also the pavers for the driveway just while we're at it. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
Do you know if the house 26 Juneau, were they ever on that, they also converted?
And I can't speak to if they converted formally or not, but
The driveway from,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, there's a curb across. You can see the old driveway there, and they've curbed over it, and they have a new driveway on the other side. So yeah.
Any additional questions?
I did, the fence that you're talking about is only on Trestle Glen, the 8-foot?
Correct. Only on the rear of the property.
Yeah.
And
And-
also that triangle there on the bottom left, that is an area where, you want to keep not full with a 8-foot fence. So it would stop short of that so that there is better sight lines as you make that right-hand turn.
Explain that to me again, because
Yeah. So, and I think it might be easier if I just get up. So, and this is something that Tiburon Public Works commonly uses. It's like this 30-foot triangle here. So 30 feet, and that is the edge of the roadway. So the car is coming here. So they wouldn't want any structures located in this zone so that as you're making the turn, you can see ahead.
And so where does the 8-foot fence start?
So outside of this 30-foot triangle right here,
I see.
and then extending over and nothing up there.
And also I did not understand what vegetation you have in that area. And I guess my question is, why couldn't you just add more vegetation instead of the 8-foot fence?
So there's a couple redwood trees here, and then otherwise there's just some bushes that
Right.
aren't much higher than 6 feet. And if you're standing there, I would say, and you're looking at the road, there's a lot of open space that is unimpeded from traffic and from sound. I think you could certainly plant redwoods and, wait, I don't know, I'm not an arborist, but a long time, and they'd eventually serve the same purpose. But I think the idea is really just to
Well, yes,
more-
why wouldn't you add vegetation now for some of your sound? Because there are some big gaps there. I noticed that there are.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this diagram here on the bottom, like that 2 feet, to have a 2-foot across really is so significant to it. It really, if you look at the diagram, can block out civilian vehicles. And then it's only the trucks that are getting some of it over the fence. So to be able to have that blocked out completely, and then to also work in some other privacy screening and sound screening with the trees, it was kind of like a dual approach, if you will. But I would go out there. It's loud. And there are other homes on that stretch that already have an 8-foot fence, and whether they did that through, and I think several have been done through a variance, but I wouldn't be surprised if several more were done just on their own.
Any other questions or clarification?
Okay, if I just ask for a clarification,
Please.
because it's on the plan, RJ, you have a section drawing and then you show the fence and site plan. I just want to confirm that the fence is essentially in elevation, that it retains a flat top. It doesn't climb. Does it climb hill? Or does it retain a pretty flat elevation?
Yeah, so there's it's pretty flat. It's very flat. There's also a drainage ditch behind it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I've heard there's, this does have, some, I don't want to say, major flooding, but flooding is an issue to be careful of in this location. And so putting too much vegetation, too much woody debris that would fall and potentially clog the culvert, that's, you would take someone who's really on top of it to make sure that doesn't end up in the culvert and then leading to a flood. I also can't say, I mean, if those trees got big enough, they eventually would impact the cross-sectional area of that ditch. So, more things to weigh out. I just, I think it's a significant enough noise and privacy issue. And it's, like I said, one of the only 2 streets in town to where it really does, in my mind, warrant the added 2 feet.
Any other questions? I just had one. So for clarification, where the fence ends at the triangle, there's no other returning fence at 6 feet or anything like that there, right? That's just going to be an open area?
There is a existing 6-foot fence for a kind of toward until it gets to the driveway. That's an existing fence, and but it's not within that 30-foot triangle, and it's not in the right of way. But it's an existing
Can you
fence.
point to that? Could you just go up there and just, or use the thingy?
Yeah, I mean, there is an existing 6-foot fence about here. So it's on the private property and it's outside of this view angle that you use for making the right-hand turn.
Okay, so then and then all the vegetation on that corner is getting removed, right? Vegetation
No,
that's essentially outside the fence?
there,
or-
so as part of the project, there were two really what were they? They were what's the loquat trees here at one point that were, had been there pretty old and weren't doing so well. So those were removed, but otherwise it's just some bushes and hedges. And then there's a few mature redwood trees on
And the bushes or hedges are staying or going?
those are staying.
Okay. And then I guess the last question I had was just around the location of the car. I know it definitely drops off there, but by the time you hit that corner, it's essentially at like where at the person's feet, right? At elevation. So I guess my question is where you have the representation of the car, where exactly
Yeah.
is that elevation
Yeah. So that's this cross section here,
right
here.
there?
And that's the
center of the house. Okay.
existing home footprint as well. So yeah.
Okay. And I guess the last one would, I keep saying the last one. So I guess, was there ever a consideration of just at least that I can definitely see the need for the 2 feet as you get closer, as it goes up, but I guess, was there any thought to not having the 8 foot come all the way to the corner, just so that there's a little bit more to look over the corner? I mean, I've come around that corner a million times, and you come down Trestle Glen really quickly, and like any additional visibility that can be provided across that corner, I think is helpful. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that that's the standard, but I think it's also a very unique, fast corner.
Yeah, and I think assuming it's the responsibility of property owner, I think what would be the proper thing to do is do some veg clearing in that triangle. There probably is some existing shrubs and whatnot that could be taken down. And that would really keep that 30-foot triangle, clear and better than it is today. And that would prevent a benefit as well.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Yeah.
Any final questions before we open up to the public? All right. So with that, we'll open up to the public. Doesn't seem like there's anybody here, but we'll go to the Zoom call, see if anybody's there.
No one has their hand up in Zoom.
All right. Excellent. And you have an additional 5 minutes if you'd like to use it, but you don't have to. All right. With that, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. And bring it back to the board. You'd like to lead us off?
Yeah, I went by the site and I'll just lead with I support both of them. I think moving the driveway is a smart move. The other houses, like it's the only one that isn't there. And so any complaints about an additional driveway on Juno, to me is not a strong argument. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that the 3-foot setback going to 0, given the right of way, is fine. It's not an issue at all. The trees, again, I get it because I walked around And you can see up there. So yes, there's sound, there's speed, there's visible connection to Trestle Glen. And I think anything that can conceal it. And the great thing is those trees aren't affecting another neighbor. They're just blocking Trestle Glen. And then finally, the 8-foot fence. Again, property by property, this makes sense. The rear yard fence at 8 feet between them and Trestle Glen, which yes, by the time they get there, it's close to the surface, but it's coming down. And I just think that all of these are smart moves. I support them.
All right. Jim?
I guess I didn't see the neighborhood having a lot of 8-foot fences elsewhere. I didn't document how many there were or weren't. There were some fences that unfortunately were eyesores along there as well. And which brings back my thought about, again, about adding as much vegetation as possible to add sound protection as well as some buffering of just coming down there and seeing a great big 8-foot fence. So I guess my thoughts would be to encourage that more than demand it, but I think it would help you with sound and I think it would look better. Doesn't have to be a 8-foot vegetation up to the fence, but I think there should be some in front of it and probably behind it for your own benefit as well.
All right. Sam?
All along Trestle Glen, I think I do see an 8-foot fence, and there's a reason because you can see everything if you drive really close by. I support it. I'm just wondering if there could be a transition from the 8 to the 6 foot, and there's some way to capture that sort of transition. And we can say until the 3 feet, start transitioning downward so that we can really hone in on that curve and going around that curve. I support the driveway. That makes total sense. Thing I don't support is the California pepper tree. I think we should go for a native species. It's an invasive species, and there's a reason why fire departments don't like it typically. So I would encourage us to suggest that we go for the native tree, especially since we have issues with fire and stuff and other issues, especially if it's going to be a fast growing tree too. It's going to block out the light for other native species going around it. So that's my only thing.
And just so I understand, you wanted to see a 6-foot fence at the corner of this.
So it's 8 feet, and then as it touches that 6 foot right at that corner, maybe there's a way to transition down just to enhance that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
It's-
but
it's a tricky
goofy.
thing. Yeah, it's gonna be goofy there.
Yeah, yeah. Can I ask a question, Suzanne? So did you say the tree is a, it's invasive?
Yes, it's not
And
native.
it's a burning, like it's not a,
Pyrophilic.
oh, it is?
I don't know. I need to do research on that, but
Okay.
I know it's an invasive species, and we should try not to.
There
use
should
that.
be plenty of other options then.
Yeah, I guess
I-
question to staff is the California pepper tree, which maybe is not from California. Is it a tree that's allowed by the town of Tiburon?
It is considered, it says right here, it's not considered, it is considered fire resistant. So it's not a pyrophilic, but it's not native. Yeah.
Yeah, again, let me just ask, because I mean, there's trees like redwood trees that aren't allowed to be planted. So is a California pepper tree allowed to be planted in the town of Tiburon according to our code?
It's not prohibited. It is considered an undesirable tree because of how fast it grows and how tall it gets.
Okay. Undesirable. All right. So I guess, I guess my comments on the project, I can definitely make the findings for the driveway. I mean, that's a very smart relocation. The variance makes perfect sense, and the 4 findings are pretty easy to make. The fence, I was on the board many years ago when we approved a fence up the hill from Trestle Glen. It was, I think, maybe even like 10 feet or something like that, because the drop off from Trestle Glen is just so steep coming down that hill on the right side that it makes perfect sense, I think, to approve variances on fences. My only concern is just making sure that at that corner, we're not creating an additional blockage. I mean, it's a very family-friendly neighborhood that I lived in for a little while, and Like that is the primary way that people make their way back into that entire neighborhood, coming down, if you're coming back from Paradise. So I guess one was, it seems like there's vegetation in that corner. So I would be in favor of like a condition of approval that like removes the vegetation from that corner, because I think that even if the fence goes in there, you still have vegetation and you're causing blockage. And I think you could improve the corner by having it removed. I don't know if anybody else, I mean, I have a photo from earlier
Yeah.
today that I was looking at. And unfortunately, I didn't probably take us the best shot of it, but it's like there's all this that exists right here that I think causes some view blockage, that it just seems like, hey, if the whole idea of yeah, it's this kind of one, I should have pointed a little bit more that way. But essentially, if the whole idea is that like, hey, there's a standard around having this corner for view, if there's anything in there, then you're not really accomplishing that. But I think that if that was cleaned up and that is the standard for being able to see around a corner, it would help. It still doesn't change the fact that people come down there 45, 50 miles an hour and then into a 20-mile-an-hour, neighborhood street. But yes, from a variance standpoint, it's definitely makes sense. So like, I guess, sounds like we're all in a similar, and then maybe the pepper tree, I don't have a strong opinion, but maybe we could just pick another tree that is.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion either, but if it's invasive, if it's not native, but it sounds like it might be native,
I would just maybe.
if there's another suggestion,
Maybe to pick something that's not on the
on
undesirable.
the undesirable list.
The
Yeah.
undesirable list,
Yeah.
but allow them the flexibility to just pick anything that's not on that list.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, it's on the list because of how fast it
Because of
grows and
how
how
fast.
tall it gets. Are you saying that you would recommend a tree that doesn't grow to the same height and at the
Does-
same speed?
Does anybody have a issue with the height in that location?
As long as it doesn't impair the view of the cars coming down and around, right?
I'm just reading that this is Wikipedia, who knows? But it's a fire resistant tree, but the problem is it creates a lot of foliage and the berries. And if it's not well maintained, it actually becomes a fire hazard. And then the other thing about it, because it grows so fast, is that it blocks out the shade and doesn't allow for the other sort of species to thrive. So for me, like a native species is preferable, because then we're not guaranteed, but we have better likelihood that it's probably less fire friendly.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, these are planned to be planted on that
Fence on the Trestle Glen side.
back
Yeah.
fence. So once again, we don't want it to get too tall because, yes, the triangle. So, but if the canopy is broad, then that's going to
Potentially one
possibly
day and eat
impede.
into the triangle.
Yeah, where are the trunks?
Yeah.
Where are they located? Like, I
It's
don't,
right, right,
They're
right
right
here.
there.
Yes, sir.
You want to show the plan up?
there.
Yeah. So I think that seems like a reasonable and good
So
solution, just to
yeah,
pick a different tree.
so I think just
Yeah.
making sure that we have guidance for staff so that they pick a tree that like we give like guidance on what tree we'd be okay with staff doing a staff level approval. So what do we want to specify on category? A slower growing tree that is not on the Tiburon's undesirable list.
And I take it the list is not, there's not really a list. It's more based on the growing speed and height. So it kind of refers to using Western Gardens book to make a call based on, so it really applies to any types of trees that grow over 35 feet. So then the question becomes, are you looking for what are the qualities or qualifications for the tree that you'd like to see in there? Is it a native?
Yeah, isn't the point though just about keeping this corner open? I mean, does
Yes.
it really matter what tree?
Yeah, so maybe we just say that like to staff to approve a tree that doesn't have the risk of growing into the like the size and nature of which would not at maturity grow into the triangle.
Triangle.
Yeah, because and to be honest, I don't think even a pepper tree is necessarily going to grow into that, given the distance. RJ, can you give us an estimate of the distance from trunk to?
Technically,
triangle?
we've closed the public hearing, so I mean, I'm happy to open it back up if you want to ask a question.
I think it may help because as staff, I'd really like to have, if we're sort of looking at a broad category, I'd like to have the applicant property owner kind of have the ability to propose a solution, or at least have an idea of what a solution is and have some concurrence that they think they could follow.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
And let me specifically reopen the public hearing so that staff can ask the applicant a question. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Reopen the public hearing. All right. And the
Yeah,
question,
I
the question
think
is,
my number one question is what's kind of the distance from your trunk to your triangle? And do you, given the comments from the design review board, do you have any thoughts on alternatives? Are you open to that approach?
Yeah, so, and I think you all have seen it, but they are a distance away from the triangle and then even further away from the road itself.
Because each side of the triangle is 30 feet, so you're talking about a little over 20 feet from at the trunk.
Right. So you know, it wasn't on my mind that these would actually branch out and go this far. Obviously I can consult with my landscape
Well, and they
architect, and if it is, then perhaps this becomes something different. At least the one on the end, but I just from doing lots of projects, you know, informally with the public projects, like it's very hard to find native trees. So that if it's limited to that, I mean, it can get
yeah,
difficult.
like maybe like native, I think is at least less of my concern. I mean, my concern, like if we can go to the materials board, like the material board shows a photo of a tree that looks like it could easily make its way to the triangle. So like, and I know that sometimes they're showing the absolute largest, most mature, beautiful tree in these things. However, like, you know, we have to fast forward 20 years from now, this corner's still going to exist and people are still going to be speeding down, you know, Trestle Glen. And if there's a chance that planting 3 trees that have the ability to look like the ones in the photo, we've now just kind of created a problem for, you know,
Yeah.
future Tiburon residents.
I mean, I think what we typically do is say this is like the maximum height. We can give like a maximum diameter too for the canopy. So we
Okay.
pick a species that goes up to X amount of feet, that gets to with a diameter X amount of canopy, you know, something like that. With that, I mean, I think that could work.
Chair Chong, may I
Yeah.
clarify one thing? So the site distance, it's, you know, it's not the whole airspace. It's really just the view of a driver to another driver. So if the canopy is higher, but, you know, 15 feet up, then it doesn't impact the line of sight. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a view impact for neighbors if it goes up. It's just that, like, you know, I mean, it's hard to tell what's
Yeah,
in the
that's
background,
it.
but this tree looks like a pretty darn big tree, and 4 of those on that corner could end up,
These get big.
yeah, it could end up essentially blocking that entire corner up again, which eliminates kind of what we're trying to solve by having vegetation removed there. So we're just trying not to create a future problem. But for me, it doesn't necessarily need to be native. But yeah, so maybe, yeah, so let's reclose the public hearing. I think we're kind of where just giving, at least for me, a size specification that staff could then approve.
Yeah. And the other point here is the only real controlling issue is that it is a undesirable tree by its overall height, which is up to 30, well over 35 feet. So if there's a tree type, whether it's native, no, ideally not a fire prone tree, but one that is meets the height limit, then there's really no discretionary trigger by staff anyway.
Okay.
So
So-
in essence, one thing you may say is simply deny the request for the planting of the undesirable tree. And we can certainly work with him on alternatives that that don't exceed the height limit and
Okay.
will
so-
probably be less
Yeah.
invasive to the airspace.
So as far as the numerical value is, I mean, we're hearing this tree is what's the maximum height of this tree?
I would say
Was it
it's over.
over
It grows to 40 feet in height.
40 feet? Okay. So like 20 feet, like something that grows to 20 feet, that's 12 feet above the fence. At least in the locations that they put it, I think it would. Yeah, I'm not a landscape architect.
know, and
20 feet's pretty short. I would say like 20, 25 feet, but to make sure that the diameter doesn't,
I mean, I think the whole thing is they're just trying, like, there's a reason, like, there's multiple ones. They're trying to kind of like create a shield for the fence so that it breaks up the fence a little bit, right? And I think that can be done with something other than,
4 trees.
yeah. So where are we on a number?
do
Yeah.
we want to condition it with a number, or do we want to just deny the trees and let staff figure it out?
Do
we
it's
give
gotten us in
guidance?
trouble in the past where staff didn't have some clear guidance on kind of, would you rather have the clear guidance or would you rather have the flexibility?
Yeah, let's see.
I trust staff, but there's been times when stuff has gotten approved and then it kind of created another problem, so.
My personal opinion, just kind of my experience with these types of conditions, I think since the landscaping is part of what you're evaluating as part of this application, I think it would be more helpful to have specific direction. There can be a little bit of wiggle room. I think you're on the right track though in terms of diameter, distance from the 35-foot triangle. That is all helpful. My only concern is that if there isn't a condition, and this may be me being too neurotic, is that I don't want them to have to go back through design review
Right.
if it's a larger tree. Even if it's not undesirable, if it's an oak tree or something that's planted, it would still trigger a tree permit. So this way, it would still be considered part of the application. So
If you are asking for no vegetation in that area and the maintenance of that, aren't you allowing them to have flexibility, but not have something that interferes with that next week or 20 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the plantings was outside of the triangle, so it would have to be like something that was so big that the concern is that from here it grows over into the triangle.
Well, I mean, but
Or-
can't you tell them that now that you have to keep this triangle free of vegetation?
Could
Or
we make
you-
the condition such that a tree at maturity, the canopy remains outside that 30-foot triangle?
Right. Yeah, the problem with like conditions of like trimming, it changes 4 owners from now and like.
No, not even
yeah,
trimming,
but
just
yeah, no, that's what I'm-
maximum
yeah,
tree
yeah.
At
canopy.
maturity, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so at maturity, the canopy doesn't.
Remains outside.
Remains outside of, yeah.
Yeah.
the triangle. Okay, I'm,
That-
all right.
And a non-pyrophilic.
And which the fire department would bump it back anyway, like
I
there's no.
heard that, yeah. I
All right,
heard
let's just stick to getting to a motion that's, all right, so
Canopy free.
so I guess we'd be looking for a motion, and then also, this needs to be additional condition of approval for clearing of the triangle. That's not part of the current application, right?
that's a standard condition in the municipal code. So that's required regardless of,
Okay.
so that doesn't need to be a condition.
Okay,
So we don't have to do anything then.
all right. Other than just, yeah. So, motion, anyone?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2 variances with an additional condition that
I think we adopt the draft resolution.
we adopt the draft resolution with the change that there's an additional condition that a tree at maturity canopy does not invade the sacred triangle
So,
and is not a pyrophilic.
all right, and the category is from CEQA.
And it's categorically exempt from CEQA.
All right, and do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Oh, excuse me.
Aye. Opposed, none? All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and with that, we move to the last item on this evening's agenda, which is 341 Karen Way. I don't see an applicant in the room.
So,
All right.
yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah, wait a second, like what?
Yeah.
Staff was nice enough to put me on the same night, so. So this is a new single-family residence at 341 Karen Way. This is in the Bel Air neighborhood. So as you can see, it's for those that are familiar, it's toward the end of the cul-de-sac of Karen Way. You know, kind of backs up to Bel Air and this old kind of railroad corridor that now has some private owners, but that are much further away from the rear yard. The existing home is 1,006 square feet, 3-bed, 1-bath with a 1-car garage. It's, as far as I can tell, the original home. Those are the story poles depicted. This is the project data, and just kind of I wanted to highlight is, so, you know, there is a variance request here for the rear yard setback to be reduced to 19 feet 7 inches. And then secondly, the existing home is a legal nonconforming on the west side. It's currently 5'6", but that would get corrected as part of the proposed project. And so it would then be 6 feet, which is the setback standard for this neighborhood. So the site plan, so yeah, as mentioned, corrects the legal non-conforming 5'6" foot, maintains a 1-car garage, which, you know, roughly half the homes in the neighborhood do not have converted those. The orange yellowish line in the back, that is representative of the rear yard setback. So you can see where the L-shaped property extends in roughly 6.5 feet. Part of the kind of idea here was really so I you know, I have my primary residence is here in this neighborhood, and there's only a couple 2-story homes, and really that's, I mean, I think for me that is very much part of the character of the neighborhood. And so really trying to keep with that without completely having no yard space is the idea. And so that's why this variance would help and kind of mitigate and, you know, provide assistance for not kind of going with a 2-story proposal. So just, yeah, getting into the findings. So is there a special circumstance that would deprive the owners? And so there are several homes that do encroach into the rear yard setback in this neighborhood. The last, I would say, really the edge of the home going up, there's a slope. And so much of that yard is not usable. It's nice to look at, but not functional space. So, you know, it's already limited by how much functional yard space is there. And so that would be a challenge. I mentioned, yeah, there have been variances granted. So this would not be kind of out on its own, the outlier. And mentioned, yeah, you know, I think, you know, I'm only aware of, I mean, there's definitely of the 50 or so homes in the neighborhood. There can't be more than 5. I can only think of 2 in my head that are actually 2-story. And so really just trying to keep with that, that character. Kind of similar thoughts, just really trying to have this home fit in with the existing neighborhood, which, you know, there's a blend of the original kind of bungalow homes, and then there's some that have been updated, but it's kind of keeping the size and scale of many of the original homes, but then adding a contemporary element and maintaining that single story. So I actually, as part of my outreach, I did talk to, meet with both the neighbors on both adjacent sides and also several others, dozen plus people in the neighborhood about this. And one of the comments was originally I had the interior ceiling at 10 feet. And so I was able to bring that down a half a foot. Even though the property to the east is up in elevation by several feet, they still said that they have a patio and they like to look that direction. And so I did revise the plans to work with them on that, and they did provide a support letter. So yeah, just really trying to work with the surrounding neighbors and make sure that the design, is not impactful to them. Just a quick summary of that outreach. So yeah, wrote letters and knocked on the doors of all the kind of 8 closest neighbors in the area. Received 8 letters of support, not necessarily all from those 8, but many of those in the 8. I would say 5 of the 8 or so. Met in person. The properties are east and west on each side, and modified the design. Quick look at the floor plan. So it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath proposed floor plan. It's got a large great room with both a family room on one side and then kind of a, formal living on the other. So really, trying to have a family focused layout and also nice flat access to the backyard. So lots of indoor outdoor flow and lots of natural light with the windows and doors. And here's the front elevation. And so it's got some warm elements. It's got the cedar tone garage and then some cedar accent on the left. As mentioned, it's got some glazing, some large windows for adding natural light. Under the glazing and around the garage is a stucco that's proposed to be painted a kind of charcoalish gray. And then the door is proposed as like a white oak tone. And then to the right of it is a wall that's going to be or is proposed as a kind of like a honed large format porcelain tile, just to kind of add a different element, but but it's still going to be a little bit subdued with the texture and not glossy in any way. Here's a rendering. The rendering does show that middle tile being pretty bright, but really it's not as bright as that is. It's a perspective. There is also a few stairs in the front that didn't make into that, so I want to note that. And if you can get a better look at the tile here, it gives you a little better. Oh, it doesn't put on the screen. Gives you a better idea of that texture. It's intended to be a flat kind of rougher honed texture. It has several stairs a few stairs in the front with a kind of, as contemporary as you can find, kind of keystone block wall. And the planting is fairly simple, just some evergreen plants, some yews to go in that space here between the property owners that just have a little buffer there, since this side, actually this home has an L that goes the other way. So really their kind of yard is focused a different direction. This property has an L that faces this way. And so they've seen this and they're content with it. And then this is a dwarf Cape brush and some boxwoods. And then just a little bit of a artificial turf kind of functional area in the front as well as the back. Thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? No? All right, with that, we'll open up to the public. Nobody's here, so we'll go to the Zoom call.
No one is on Zoom.
Okay, no
That
one's
has
on
their hand
Zoom. With that, you have additional 5 minutes if you'd like to use it. All right, and with that, we'll bring it back to the board to close the public portion of the hearing. Anybody like to lead us off? Yeah, well, Jim, your turn.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I don't understand the need for the 5.5-foot additional variance. It seems like a very big mass to this. And I think it's also magnified a bit by the fact that there's the large windows that, extend down to almost to the ground in the front of it. So it does have the presence of a larger looking house. There's no way I could tell. You mentioned that there are other neighbors that do go beyond this setback, and I just couldn't appreciate that without trying to get in everyone's backyard, because it is hard to get to those. So I don't know if these variants have been granted to other homes in the past, but I guess I was a little surprised that 5.5 feet was so important to the building of this.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Suzanne?
I think I'm okay with the variance. I don't know. I think they're well within the setbacks on the other sides, and their lot coverage is well under. And we tend to be a little bit more lenient when they're not going up, and they just tend to grow out. I think there is room on the plan to tighten things up, actually, but I don't know.
All right,
I mean, it's their preference, right? And it's weird to have the bedrooms in the front like that, but that's just me.
all right.
Yeah, I went over there and unfortunately I could not get through any gate. There was like I'm too short, my arm's too short. So I'm going based on the drawings, but I do support it, and here's why. There are numerous variances and some setback, I believe rear yard setback variances in the neighborhood. Again, what you said earlier, that we are more lenient with houses that choose to stay single-story homes. I studied this, and honestly, these bedrooms are small. They're 10'6". They're stacked. I was looking at it and like, okay, could the laundry go over to the other side so that you'd pull it forward? But then they're also trying to create a usable backyard, and that would push the wall of the living room, dining room back into the yard. And so it's not usable on the side. I think it makes sense. He's making an effort to stay single story. These aren't big, huge spaces. They have to stack one in front of the other. Pushing it to the perimeter makes sense to me. So I support it. I support it. I think it's not an unusual condition in that neighborhood either. So I think there's it's not I'm blanking. It is not a specific privilege granted that
Yeah.
others aren't granted. If I can find my words.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place. I think that there's when it comes to 2 stories, there's neighborhoods in Tiburon that are anti 2-story, and then there's ones that are very anti 2-story, and this is a neighborhood that's very anti 2-story. And so I think I always appreciate when especially when it's a hillside and non-impacting. I think there's definitely been applications that have tried to say, hey, you know what, this really isn't impact anybody, but then you're going to have neighbors on the side that you know, have impacts to their backyards and these type of things. So I appreciate the, you know, attempt to really work with a one story, which then creates, you know, a situation where to be able to have some outdoor space in the backyard, you've kind of got to push and squeeze a little harder than if you had the luxury of doing a second story. And so I think that this is kind of the result of that. And we have changed some of the rules in Tiburon where it does make it a little bit easier, you know, when it comes to like lot coverage. But I think some of these lots, it still ends up kind of bumping back. And in this case, I'm able to make the findings because I think not having some outdoor space is a hardship. So, so yeah, so I'm able to make the 4 findings. It sounds like we're all in a similar place.
I think
with
you bring
maybe-
up a good point too, that there's not a neighbor right behind. You know, it's not pushing toward another neighbor.
Yeah,
you know,
if there was
The
like
neighbor
a,
is
if
a
there was
big
another
hill.
Hill, yeah.
if there was another neighbor, I think I'd really have a hard time making all the findings. But with the fact that it's a hillside that backs up to, you know, a school property, I just think it's fine. So yeah, with that, maybe we have a draft resolution. So I think we'd be looking for.
Like to make a motion to accept the draft resolution as is, and it's categorically exempt from CEQA.
And do we have a second?
I second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. The motion does pass to adopt the draft resolution, which brings us to the end of our last public hearing and our adjournment. Thank you, everyone.